This is week 2 of our distance learning. We are starting in a new unit today, mostly because I looked at the ending assignments that were at the end of unit 3 and I was not too crazy about it, so we're going on and skipping to unit 4. So this week we're going to be reading Flowers for Algernon. It is a science fiction story, so we're going to be reviewing some of the genre and text elements that we've gone over before. So it's going to be review, but we're going to be emphasizing a couple other things that we hadn't before. So anyway, we know that science fiction combines elements of fiction with actual or imagined science. And it doesn't need to be one or the other. Sometimes it's a combination of both or a combination. Okay, so it doesn't have to be all imagined. It doesn't have to be all actual. Our author's purpose in science fiction is to tell an imaginative story that uses elements of science or technology. The settings are at least partly imaginary, such as another planet or the future. And of course, we can switch settings if we have some time travel going on and things like that, right? Because we need to remember that our setting is not just the place, like here, but it's also the time. Conflicts that arise from some aspect of the setting, especially elements of science or technology. So this is a particularly important one. I think something that I've said before about science fiction is that they tend to be kind of cautionary tales, right? So the conflicts tend to be between, man and science and, what they're hoping to achieve through science and how far they're kind of willing to take things. We may have human or non-human or technologically enhanced human characters. So we should not expect for even our human characters to be realistic, right? Because there's a possibility that, because of the things going on in the story, that the humans are even going to be very different than we are in real life. It often expresses a theme about human aspiration and self-knowledge. So when we're talking about human aspiration, we're basically talking about the things that humans want to accomplish. So goals, what humans want to accomplish. And we can see the connection between human aspirations and science fiction, right? Because again, we're talking about some conflicts arising from how far humans are willing to go, right? Where they're willing to follow their imaginations or whatever. Dialogue includes invented words such as references to futuristic technology. So we may be having some words that are completely made up by the author. Don't feel like this should be something that you should know, or if you look it up in the dictionary and you can't find it, that's okay too. Because again, it just might be something that the author has made up for the purpose of this story. So just make sure that you're using context clues to kind of figure out what those things mean. So use context clues. And of course, our structure, we have a series of related events. We do have a plot. It is a story that involves a problem related to technology or science. In other words, a conflict, right? So in talking about conflicts, we have two major types of conflicts. We have external conflicts, which is when a character is struggling against an outside force, something outside of themselves, such as nature, social roles or expectations, or another character. So anytime you're having an issue with something, if you're lost in the woods, for example, your conflict is going to be with nature, right? You're trying to overcome the difficulties that are presented with you being lost in the woods. If, for example, we're talking about somebody being bullied, right, because they're different. Well, in this case, their conflicts will not only be with their bullies, but also social roles, right? They're different because people have certain expectations of how people should be. And then here, just like this example, we may have conflicts with another character, a bully, whatever. If you think of like basically any book where, a teenage character is having an issue with their parents, right? That's an external conflict. We also have internal conflicts in which a character struggles with his or her own opposing thoughts, needs, or feelings. So usually this is happening when a character needs to make a decision about something and then they're not sure, what they should do. That is going to be an internal conflict, right? Because it's not something that is caused by an outside force. It's within themselves. So really, whenever you find a character that is unsure about what to do, maybe is struggling to understand themselves, that is definitely internal. In science fiction, conflicts often stem from technology. Characters often fail to anticipate these conflicts or simply ignore them. So sometimes these characters don't see what's coming, right? They are just kind of pushing the limits of technology, and either they don't foresee the problems that could be caused, or, like it says here, they simply ignore them. They may find themselves in external conflicts with their societies and in internal conflict over their own responses or how they are handling things, right? What they think is right and wrong, stuff like that. Ultimately, their reactions and the motivations or reasons for their behavior directly influence the story's events and resolution. So this is another major thing that we're going to be talking about, especially in reference to Flowers for Algernon, which is a character's motivations, why they are doing what they do, why they say what they say. Okay, so motivations, we're really talking about the why. So here's an example. So here we have a conflict. In the future, everyone must have a device implanted at birth that records every event in his or her life. One woman decides she wants the device removed. So we may see some internal conflict when she's trying to decide whether or not she should get this thing removed, right? So here her motivation is that the woman thinks it's wrong for the government to monitor people's personal lives. So this is why she wants it removed. The behavior, what she actually does, or actions, is that she has a device removed. And the effect on the events or the resolution is that she's imprisoned for defying the law. But her bravery sparks a revolution, right? So we have kind of like a cause and effect stuff. And obviously it says here, right, it does affect the events. So there always needs to be a reason why a character does things. And so this is motivation is the reason for the behavior, and the behavior causes certain effects in the plot. Okay, so when you guys are reading Flowers for Algernon, I know it's kind of a lengthy story. I did include links for the story being read aloud, and I've also marked down where each section starts and stops. I know it's going to take a little while to get through. Okay, the audiobook is pretty good. I feel like the guy's voice kind of gives us some kind of insight into how that main character Charlie was feeling, and how the type of person that he is and things like that. So I hope that you guys like that one. For the assignments, these are the questions that I'm referring to on the margins. Okay, these are the ones that are always a 2-part question. So you're going to answer this one, and of course make sure that you answer the second part of the question as well. And okay, I want to go over the behavior motivations again. So every plot centers on a conflict that characters face, right? The conflict, or the story's events, and its resolution are all influenced by a character's personality, especially his or her behavior and motivations. If the character did nothing, right, there would be no events, right? If the character didn't have a reason for doing things, they, it would make for a very, very boring story, right? There would basically be nothing happening. So again, the behavior is what a character says and does, actions. And the motivations are the reasons for a character's behavior and actions. So characters usually want something, or maybe they fear something, and so that's why they may be avoiding whatever, or they may be fighting against something, right? But they all have, they're like people. They're supposed to reflect what people are like in real life. And we all want certain things, and we're all driven by certain desires that we have, right? And so that influences our behavior. I also want to review narrative points of view and how it contributes to irony. So a story's point of view or perspective, or actually says it right here, a story's point of view is a perspective from which it is told. In first person point of view, the narrator is a participant in the story's events and uses first person pronouns such as I, me, and mine. We can see that Charlie is definitely a first person, right? He's writing in the form of a diary, so of course it's going to involve him. The narrator can only tell what he or she sees, knows, thinks, and feels. So Charlie has no way of knowing what the doctors are thinking and feeling or what anybody else is thinking or feeling because it's told from just one person's perspective. In third person point of view, the narrator is not part of the story's events, and these narrators use their person pronouns such as he, she, and they when referring to other characters, right? And of course, we may have omniscient third person narrators. Omniscient, all-knowing, or we may have limited third-person narrators where, you know, they only know how certain characters are thinking or feeling. The qualities of the narrator can play a critical role in the effect of a story. For example, in parts of this story, Charlie, the first-person narrator, is naive. Okay, he does not fully understand what is happening for different reasons that you will see once you read the story. Often, stories that use a naive first-person point of view have profound dramatic irony. Dramatic irony was something that we talked about when we were reading Anne Frank, The Diary of Anne Frank. This means that the reader knows more about the narrator's situation than the narrator actually does. So the reader is already anticipating certain things, right? Maybe certain things are being foreshadowed to us. And these are things that, of course, the narrator is unaware of. So, of course, just like this past week, if you guys have any questions about the assignments, or if you're having some difficulty understanding certain, parts of the story, please leave a comment and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Take care and stay safe.